Digitalisasi mendorong dunia menjadi lebih baik, namun kesiapan infrastruktur, teknologi, dan literasi digital serta pemerataan akses masih menjadi tantangan. Oleh karenanya, Satuan Tugas Digitalisasi atau Digitalization Task Force G20 memiliki sejumlah inisiatif yang disiapkan untuk mengakselerasi transformasi digital. Dan koresponden CNN Indonesia Ruli Kurniawan akan membahas sejauh mana peran sektor swasta dalam mendorong transformasi digital di Indonesia bersama Jerry Soper, President Director of Ericsson Indonesia dalam B20 Talk.
Dari Bali International Convention Center Nusa Dua Bali, Anda menyaksikan B20 Talks bersama saya, Ruli Kurniawan. Digitalisasi menjadi kunci penting dalam mendorong dunia menjadi lebih baik. Namun, kesiapan infrastruktur teknologi dan literasi digital serta pemerataan akses masih menjadi tantangan. Oleh karenanya, Satuan Tugas Digitalisasi atau Digitalization Task Force B20 memiliki sejumlah inisiatif yang disiapkan untuk mengakselerasi transformasi digital. Dan untuk membahas sejauh mana peran sektor swasta dalam mendorong transformasi digital di Indonesia, saya sudah bersama dengan Jerry Soper, President Director of Ericsson Indonesia. How are you, Jerry?
Hi, Ruli. I'm very well, thanks. It's great to be here. Lovely to meet you.
Glad to having you here with us today.
Thank you so much.
Right. Jerry, I'm going to start by asking about digitalizations, that because digitalization is one of the main topic or issues being discussed in G20. So how can innovations in your perspective and digitalizations help the world's economic recovery, including Indonesia?
Yeah. I think when you look at the last 10 years and how much digitization has changed the world already, that gives us a glimpse of the future. If we see now people are banking, they're ordering taxis, they're getting goods delivered, doing all sorts of things online and not using computers, but using small mobile devices. So doing things that were inconceivable only 10 years ago. And that process is going to continue into the future. And I think as the technology develops and of course as it gets out to more and more people, which is really, really important, then we're going to see that it helps to develop the world. One of the studies that we've done with Imperial College shows that if you increase mobile broadband penetration by 10%, it can give a 0.8% increase in GDP.
Right.
And in developing countries, it can be even more.
Okay.
So that really just demonstrates the power of digitalization and what it can achieve, not just for society, but also for the GDP, of course, which is good for society as well.
So we have like 8%, like if we increase digitalizations to increase and leveling our economic growth. Yeah, that's really great data. So if we talking about digitalizations again, so how do you see digitalizations can overcome the world's many challenges nowadays, and what are Ericsson's initiatives to help digital inclusion in Indonesia?
I think digital inclusion is a really important point.
It's the key point, right?
Yeah. And Ericsson has been part of the B20 digitalization stream. Our CEO was co-chair with Per Ririk of Telkom Group. And one of the key themes of that is digital inclusion. And when you look around the world today, there are still 2.9 billion people that don't have an internet connection or don't have a mobile or any other type of connection. So one of the things that's really important that comes out of the B20 is really putting a focus on digital inclusion so that we can get the internet and connectivity even to the most remote and the poorest parts of the world. And an initiative that we'll be announcing here soon, Connect to Learn, is where we connect very, very remote villages that may not have any connection whatsoever. And we can do that by a number of sort of mediums. It may be by satellite or by other means. And there what we want to do is to take the internet out to places that have never been served by it. Super important when we think of education. It really opens up a window so that people who never before had access to the internet, I should say, can use it, they can learn about the world around them, and of course educate themselves. So this is a really important initiative, and I think it's one of the key themes coming out of the digitization stream.
So digitalization is for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So talking about digitalizations for everybody. So how will the G20 presidency maximize digital infrastructures and support private efforts to bring inclusive connectivity for all, like you said before?
I think it's something of a partnership, and that's something that's been highlighted. If you look at Ibu Shinta and the way that she's sort of highlighted the involvement of Kadin in Indonesia, it's a partnership between government and business. And I think this is something that in many parts of the world there needs to be a partnership between businesses, because if we can drive digitalization, that opens up opportunities for entrepreneurs, for the developers, and for many different people. And at the same time, then that helps to drive the economy, to give inclusion. So the two can go very nicely together, and then hopefully again taking digitization out to the most underserved places on the earth.
That's really interesting. So we're talking about the pandemic era, because since the pandemic, digitalization has become one of the pillar for the human life. And how does Ericsson see the role of digitalizations in the future when the crisis strikes again?
So just a great question. I think when we look back at the pandemic, who would have predicted 3 or 4 years ago that the world could operate remotely? And that's exactly what happened. Big companies like Ericsson, for nearly 2 years, we worked pretty much with 90% of our workforce remotely. That was possible because of the tools, developed in digitization. And I think then if you look at some of the health applications that we have, most countries in the world developed tracing applications, applications to monitor who's been inoculated against COVID and so on. And I think that now that gives us some very valuable lessons for the future that we can develop. And it'll be much easier to develop coming out with the experience that we have. So I think in the future, hopefully these things are way off in the future, but if they do arise again, then we're going to be in much better shape, and we'll have many more tools at our fingertips to be able to deal with them.
Right. So as the one of the leading industry in this sector, so how do you see Indonesia's digital infrastructure so far?
I think Indonesia's made great strides so far, and when we look at the path that the government has set, I mean, we have 4G is rolling out in many places, certainly in the big cities. We've just started on the 5G journey, and next year we're going to see the availability of the 5G spectrum. That will hopefully in the coming years enable 5G for all. So I think the government here is set on a very clear and strong path to get to that. And then I think when you look at the nation of Indonesia, it's such a young population. The demographics are so young. People are very tech savvy. They're interested in technology. They're interested in information. So the demand is going to be incredibly high, and that's why certainly for Ericsson, we look at Indonesia with incredible potential. We think this country is really going to grow in the coming years.
That's our hope, growing with the digitalizations. Once again, thank you very much, Jerry Soper, for your insight for today in B20 Talks CNN Indonesia. Thank you very much once again.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan terima kasih sudah menyaksikan B20 Talks kali ini. Saya Ruli Kurniawan. Terima kasih, sampai jumpa.